Kapha is the next dosha that we'll be examining. I tend to be a little of a Kapha constitution. And my biggest indication that Kapha is in excess is when I try to clean my closets out, or I try to go through a phase of eliminating excess in my life, or what I consider to be excess, and find that I get a little clingy to it. Maybe there's an emotional attachment to something, and before you know it, all of my great intentions for actually spring cleaning or organizing, whatever you might call it, decluttering, seems to go to waste. So Kapha is associated with the earth and water elements, which govern Kapha. And when we look at the characteristics of Kapha, such as its attributes of being heavy, dense, slow, cool, and stable, it seems somewhat logical that these qualities are a reflection of the earth and water elements. The earth, of course, providing structure, which is one of the attributes of Kapha, and water being dense and heavy. The Kapha dosha governs lubrication. It provides the body with its physical form, structure, and a smooth functioning of all of its parts. Its qualities are heavy, slow, dense, cooled, oily, and sticky. And the season that it influences, or when it's at its highest, is spring. And one way of making the analogy to the elements, of course, that govern Kapha, the earth and the water, is think about what's happening in the springtime to the earth. Depending on where you live, after the long winter, and particularly if snow happens to be in your environment, or a lot of heavy rains, the ground is heavy, and more importantly, the earth is just abundantly full of all of this new life that wants to spring forth. So again, the structure element is there. The weight of the earth after the winter is there as well. Kapha body types are generally stocky, well developed. I like to think the Kapha body type is curvy, so larger frames generally. Kapha types tend to gain weight easily as well when Kapha is high. And generally, Kapha is a reflection when there's a fair complexion with skin that is cold or cool, moist, soft to the touch. Abundant, wavy, luxurious hair is another attribute of Kapha. And Kapha types tend to have larger, wide eyes with abundant eyelashes. Kapha, when it is in excess, of course, represents a low appetite. So we don't seem to be as hungry, and we can often actually go with skipping breakfast, but having our main meal at noon when our digestive fire is heaviest, or when it burns brighter. They prefer pungent, bitter taste. Some of the other qualities of Kapha is that they're slow, steady, and very loyal, with a slower metabolism. The time of the day in which Kapha rules is from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. So what does this mean? Basically, the best time to get up is before 6 a.m. if you find that Kapha is in excess, and to maybe engage in your yoga practice or your ritual, your morning rituals then. And then during the day, when Kapha is dominant, we tend maybe to be a little on the sluggish side or a little slower. At night, between 6 and 10, this is when Kapha is the highest, and this is when we begin to slow down in preparation for our rest. In looking at what the signs are, or the influences are, when Kapha is imbalanced, and let's go take a look. So when Kapha is in excess, the skin tends to be a little on the paler side. We tend to be overly attached. And that overly attachment may be to material things, it may be to emotions, it may be to other ties that bind us. The digestion begins to slow down, and we tend to experience drowsiness, excessive sleep, and a sensation of lethargy. So when kapha is in excess, we just don't seem to want to move as much, and we need movement. When it's deficient, we may have this feeling of emptiness, like something is just missing. The joints tend to be a little on the looser side as well, and our digestion is impaired. So, because kapha needs movement to counter that tendency to be a little sluggish, a little slow, the practice, the actual yoga practice itself, should look at integrating asanas that are a little more dynamic or generate a little more heat. So, one of the class types that would help pacify kapha would be a vinyasa type class, a power type class, or a class where poses are held longer, more strength based, more focused as well, to help generate a little more heat. And of course, some twist in there helps as well. The sample kapha class that I provided, and again, when you're looking at wanting to balance kapha or pacify it, look for class designs that are a little more dynamic, includes standing in mountain pose, and then moving through a series of half sun salutations, and then considering to incorporate a few rounds of Surya Namaskar A, moving into a balancing pose of tree, Vrikshasana. On this particular class then moves into 2 rounds of Surya Namaskar B, and integrated in here as well is then the warrior series, back to mountain pose, into squat, plank, into child's pose, camel, into child's pose, plank, into cobra, back into child's pose, a seated wide leg forward fold, and then boat pose in there as well, recline twist, and of course Shavasana. And we have included a sample kapha balancing class. There is no audio to it, it is just set to music, but you get the idea. So again, here's kapha.